Sure, I think so.
Firstly, I'd like to welcome Noel, who's presenting again for the cruising division. He's done quite a few for us already on some very wide-ranging topics. And tonight's one should be as entertaining as the others. Just as an aside, I'd like to do a few things that we're doing for the upcoming events, which is on Wednesday, the 23rd of September, we're doing the Unexpected Voyage of the Greg Mortimer, where Phil Bennett and Dr. Ian Goodwin will recall how the COVID outbreak turned a luxury cruise in a most unexpected voyage. And in October, on the 28th, JT is going to regale us with some stories about sailing on Anaconda 2 from Sydney to Dover. And also on the long weekend, a few of us are planning to make our way to Coasters Retreat for a rendezvous on Saturday night and a BYO lunch ashore on Sunday. Of course, this is governed by complying with the COVID-19 rules in place at the time. And if you're interested in that, please contact John Hancock's. And on that note, I'd say Noel, great appreciate if you can start the presentation.
Okay, Noel, over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. This presentation has been specifically designed and developed for the women and girls of the squadron. Could the men watching this presentation by themselves please invite the women and girls to see it? They'll probably really appreciate it. If I haven't included, some apologies in advance, if I haven't included your favourite woman sailor, then it's difficult to find who to cover. The terminology varies. I'll use the term woman, women. There's often the word females used. And how do you find the really important sailors? Well, you'll see we'll start with our own Australian Hall of Fame, Sailing Hall of Fame. But I've also looked at a lot of websites, top 10 women sailors, top 20, etc. So I've selected, there's a huge number to select from. I've selected those that I think you'll find interesting. And the approach I've taken is we'll do one in great detail, which is the Kay Cotty voyage. And now that you appreciate what it takes to do this, we'll then have a look at a number of women sailors, not in quite the same detail, but by then you'll have an appreciation of what it takes to do something like this. There's over 200 slides, mostly photos. It'll probably take an hour. I haven't given it before, so it's a bit uncertain. So here we go. I had the great privilege of attending the 2017 induction of people into the Sailing Hall of Fame. They're the covers of the booklets for the induction, and they also give out awards. So we'll see who were inducted and who got awards. So what we'll be looking at is women sailors. I've selected 18 out of an enormous number to cover, a great variety. We'll have a look, well, if you're going to do something like this, a circumnavigation or a race around the world, what could possibly go wrong? I'm sure it won't deter you from giving this a try. Then we'll look at the women that have done circumnavigations, the women at racing. We'll have a look, first of all, at the Australian women who have done these things, and then some people from other parts of the world. And lastly, now you've, particularly the women watching, have said, look, I think I should give this a go. We'll finish up with a challenge and see how that goes. So I thought I'd look at the definition of a sailor. It's quite wide. It says you can be a crew or commercial or naval ship. And the interesting thing, it says below the rank of officer. But when you look up the famous women sailors, some of them are captains of, in particular, Russian ships. So it's a bit been expanded a bit, I think, the definition. Back to the Sailing Hall of Fame. 2017, which was the first event, 25 men were inducted and 4 women. But you may think, well, how do they manage that? 19 of them were the Australia 2 crew and the people that supported Australia 2. So it wasn't as bad as what it looks first up. But in 2018, 5 men, no women, and in 2019, 4 men and 1 woman. So who was inducted in 2017? Jenny Armstrong and Belinda Stoll, Kay Cotty, Lisa Tesh. So a lot of Olympic people there. And in 2019-18, Adrian Cahalan. Also, they had the Woman Sailor of the Year. The people that got the induction didn't just rock up all of a sudden and do something. They were awarded the Sailor of the Year on the way through their career. Now, if you think your chances in Australia aren't really good, you're thinking about, well, I'd like to do something really good here and get into the Sailing Hall of Fame. It doesn't look too good in Australia. I think I'll go to the United States. This is the record of the United States. In 9 years, only 4 women have been inducted into the Hall of Fame, and 78 men have. Not a great record. So we'll look at 3 slides now out of the women sailors that have really done something. I can't possibly cover them all. The ones in red we will cover, and you can see some names here that you can recognise. Kay Cotty, Jessica Watson. Next slide, you can see Wendy Tuck here, Lisa Blair, Vanessa Dudley, Lisa Tesh. Notice the surnames here. It starts out with women. The women who started all of this, doing outstanding things, were largely British, French, Australian and New Zealand, but now it's expanded to lots of other countries in the world. So the women have really taken up the challenge here. What could possibly go wrong? Well, a rollover. We'll see photos of all this. Pitch pole, dismasted, broach, lose control, get knocked down, washed overboard. By the way, Kay Cotty experienced most of this. You lose your keel, lose your rudder, lost some equipment, something broken, accident, injury. There's lots of things you can happen as you race around a boat trying to fix something. Seasickness, food poisoning, toothache. That's easy to fix. You've got some epoxy resin in the toolkit, so a filling comes out, you just mix it up and that's how you fix it. That's how it was done. So if you are rolled over, that's how you may finish up. So you can imagine yourself sitting there waiting for rescue. And what the boats now do all sorts of rollover tests and stability tests. You may think turning a boat like this over is quite easy. The boat's brought into a dock. It doesn't have a rig on it. A crane turns it upside down. And once it's upside down, in this particular case, it's got a canting keel. A crew member climbs through this manhole, goes inside, switches the canting keel to one side. You can see it to the side. And this photo is the boat actually righting itself with the canting keel bringing it up. The huge boats that race around the world are now given stability tests. And if you're wondering what a pitch pole is, I don't have a photo of a yacht, but this is a pitch pole in America's Cup. When the bow digs in, this is what happens. Unfortunately, on this particular one, a crewman got killed, which caused all sorts of new safety regulations to come in. What does dismasted mean? This is Lisa Blair, who did the circumnavigation of Antarctica, asleep in her bunk at night, and all of a sudden there's a tremendous bang up on the deck to see. You can see what's left of the mast, dismasted. And of course, she's in the middle of nowhere and finally gets back to Cape Town. You can see the jury rig. It's probably a spinnaker pole. Took quite some time. Another shot of dismasted. It's fine if the mast finishes up the back, but if it finishes out the side, it can punch a hole in the hull. So getting rid of it with some wire cutters, bolt cutters is something important to do. Another photo, a Volvo boat dismasted. Also a clipper boat. Now, I'm not trying to put you off this, but this is just what can go wrong. This boat's obviously lost its keel. This one's lost its rudder, so you need a temporary rudder. So, and of course, a knockdown. That's what you look like when you're knocked down. Kay Cotty was knocked down several times. Now, if you'll probably ignore all of that. That happens to other people. That won't happen to you when you go out. So here's Isabel in the Vendy Globe Open 60. And you can probably see yourself here. It looks like a big, comfortable boat. You're by yourself going around the world. Or maybe you can see yourself here, single-handed, bit of rough water. Now, if you can't see yourself single-handed, then maybe you can see yourself as part of a crew. This being part of a crew on this boat looks like a hell of a lot of fun. If you can see yourself in that photo, this is for you. If you didn't see yourself there, maybe you can see yourself here. Not only does that look wet, it looks very, very cold. Now, if you're young and you're a teenager and you go, well, I'm too young to do it. Not so. Laura Decker at 14 said she wanted to do it. Fortunately, the Dutch authorities prevented her from doing it, but she did it at 16, the same as Jessica Watson. Now, if you're going, I'm in my late 70s, I'm far too old to do this. Not so. Jeannie did it when she was 70, and then just in case somebody had decided to up that record, she did it again at 77. So we're setting out to do a circumnavigation. What's important? Travel in one general direction, cross the equator twice, cross all meridians of longitude. There's a minimum distance, 21,600, and it's of course sailed rather than travel. So the Guinness Book of Records and the World Sailing Speed Records have had to change to try to deter people from trying to be the first, trying to be the youngest, just to take a little bit of the motivation of people that are doing it, probably not for the right reason. So what we're going to have a look at now is the Australian sailors. Kay Cotty, of course, 87, 88. Jessica, several years later. And Lisa Blair, quite recently in 2017 and 2018. Here's Kay with one of her trophies. Australian of the Year, 1988. Wrote a book. Nearly all of the people that do this write books which are well read. And here she is. Notice she's got a harness on, a tether to the boat. I'll take you, and I went to the museum and took photos of the boat. So I will give you a virtual tour of her boat so you can see a lot more detail. So she was 33 years old when she did this. She's a little bit different. She's a boat builder and sailor, so she really knows what she's doing in terms of the boat. And she's a very handy woman. She can take all the equipment apart, fix it, and put it back together. Now, there are three key words here: single-handed, solo, non-stop, and unassisted. A lot of the other women didn't meet those three criteria. She is quite unique in that respect. Raised a lot of money, $1 million, which would have been quite a bit for Ted Knopf's, and the present time is living in Yamba on the Yamba Marina. Here she is, later years. That's a photo of the yacht at the museum. And remember this number, I've got it on some later slides. 189 days, and she exceeded the minimum. Took her 7 months. She decided to go below the 5 land masses, the 5 Capes route. We'll see a diagram in a minute. You've got to cross the equator, so she's got to go up to the San Pedro rocks and come back. Here's not a very good diagram, but at least gives you the idea. She's below all of the Capes and here up crossing the equator and coming back. So you're going to experience some very cold conditions, and once you're in the equator, she was becalmed, so you're sitting there just sizzling in the heat. To do with this, of course, you need a lot of support, a lot of expertise to do that. Here we've got the sails. Roger, I'll just pick some names out that you may know. Roger Badham often does the Sydney-Hobart weather forecast. Peter Antill, as you probably know, I race a yacht. I have a set of North sails on it, which Peter Antill did a fantastic job coming out, measuring the boat, designing them. So that's the sort of support Kay needed to get it ready to go. She did get recognised, Order of Australia, Australian of the Year, inducted into the Hall of Fame in Newport, Rhode Island. That's a home of the America's Cup. That's a big deal, and got lots of firsts. So in the year, she was the Australian of the Year in 1988, she was in great company. Look at the men around her. I'm sure you can recognise all of those names. So the challenges. There was a 75% chance she would be rolled over by a huge wave, Cape Horn, etc. It didn't happen. She was knocked down several times. She was washed overboard. When you're washed overboard, you've got your tether, you're still tied to the boat's self-steering. So what you've got to wait for the next big wave to help you get back on board. Cape Horn was 20-metre waves, 100 knots as she rounded the Cape of Good Hope in that area there. Concerned about icebergs and submerged containers. She did have an equipment breakdown when she was knocked down once. The bang damaged the boom, which had to be repaired. And on the way to New Zealand, the first leg, she lost a key piece of equipment, the wind generator that was going to charge the batteries and allow her to power the radio and other equipment. There are still pirates, and she was quite fearful of that. And she learnt to use a rifle. And of course, the challenge is your health, whether you'll stay healthy and just keep your emotions in check. So it's nothing unusual. It's a 37-foot cavalier, but she's modified it quite extensively. In case it was hulled, she's got extra bulkheads, 2 up the bow, 1 at the stern. A really heavy-duty mast, much stronger than you normally see on a boat this size. Keel support. I'll just pick out some key items. The thicker perspex windows. She knew she was going to be knocked down. The chances are were very good. And of course, when you knock down, the windows become the floor which you may be standing on. So they needed to be able to support that situation. And instead of putting a harness on and a tether and going out in bad weather to look, she put a dome, had a dome so she could just pop her head up in a closed up boat and see what was happening. All of the things that were bolted through the deck, the no lining to cover them, the bolts, nuts were open so that you could quickly do repairs. And of course, a whole lot of extra tanks for fuel and water. And just to make sure the hull didn't carry a lot of growth and slow her down, 4 coats of anti-foul paint. The safety equipment, once again, I'll just pick out things, 5 handmade batteries. You want a good quality battery here, or it's going to take a big hammering, the vibration of the boat. She had an air-cooled diesel generator inside. Unfortunately, it was extraordinarily noisy and it pumped out lots of fumes, quite dangerous. The 2 kerosene lamps are interesting. You're out at night sailing, it's pitch dark. One of the alarms goes off. She's got 2 alarms, one for radar and one for temperature. If one of those go out and you bolt out of your bunk, you could do yourself an injury. So the lamps are turned down to provide some light so you can see what she's doing and in a quick wake up. And also in the really cold weather, they provide just a little bit of heat in the cabin. So here's a daily routine. And notice the change of sails. Doing this by yourself, it's typically taking her 45 minutes to change a sail. The maintenance up to 5 hours, the winches. At times she had to do quite a lot of repairs, maintenance on the equipment. She did cook and bake, as we'll see later, and had 3 good meals a day. A lot of the food was stored under the floor in the bilges, and a lot of it was tin food. And typically the tin food of the day would have a paper label. You couldn't do that. The paper label would come off. There's always going to be water down there on a voyage like this. And it's probably going to clog the bilge pump. So we'll see later what they had to do to the enormous number of cans of food. Now, some interesting items here. Well, you've got to keep your sanity, meditating for 20 minutes a day. You've got to keep yourself fit. Yoga an hour, Bathing out in the cockpit, there's nobody going to be watching. It's called a bucket over the side. Just a bucket of water over yourself, dry yourself down. There's no fresh water to rinse off, so that would have been an interesting experience. Fortunately, she was sponsored by the right company. Washing clothes, salt water, the process of washing, wash, rinse and dry. This is how it was done. In a bucket in the cockpit, the washing, a rope with the clothes strung out behind the boat, beautiful fresh salt water to rinse it and put up on the lifelines to dry. If you've ever seen something washed in salt water and dried, it's a little bit cardboardy. And once again, fortunately, she had lots of lotions to help out here. Talk on the radio. She got to know a lot of the radio operators on the ships and the shipping channels and could talk to them. And the sundowner and a good look. You had to keep your sanity in some normal life. So occasionally on a nice day, she would get dressed, put her makeup on, go out in the cockpit and have a sundowner, gin and tonic, etc. And she talked to Ted continuously. We'll see who Ted is later. 16 sails, and she had both a furler and a forestay, so she could put up 2 head sails, and everything you needed in a really serious blow. The navigation equipment, you can see here, enormous amount of navigation. She did some of it by dead reckoning, just knowing from a previous position the course the boat was on and the speed it was doing, etc. But she had some quite sophisticated navigation equipment of the day and lots of charts to help her do the navigation. The self-steering, I'm not going to go into the detail. All I'm doing is illustrating the amount of equipment that she had on board. She planned for 10 months at sea. Now, the self-steering equipment is doing the work most of the time, and you have to have some self-steering. You have to be able to sleep, eat, do all the normal daily things that you do. So you definitely need some backup and backup and backup here with lots of spare parts. If you can't have the boat self-steering itself, you're really in big trouble. So if something happened to the rig, you can notice a coil of rigging wire. If something frayed or broke in the rig, she had the ability to repair it, swaging tool, wire cutters, you name it. And here's the safety equipment. I'll just highlight a couple of things: a very pistol to fire flares high up, the sea anchors, the emergency tiller system, all sorts of 2 EPIRBs. And she had spares. As I mentioned before, she trained herself to be able to take the radio. All of the equipment on board, she knew how to maintain. You can see 8 winch handles, 2 binoculars. She had backup for nearly everything. Once again, the tools. She could fabricate in either wood or metal if she had to, a new part, or she could repair something in wood or metal. You can see just the list of equipment here, including the epoxy glue, which came in handy for a bit of a tooth repair. You're going to be both in very cold weather and very hot weather, so this is the sort of clothing that she took with her. Some beanies, 6 tracksuits, and the food. You can see she did a lot of cooking, flour, etc. Just let you scan through that to get some idea of the food she took. You can see there's a lot of tins and cans of things, fruit cakes. And, well, you need something to drink apart from the water. Let me highlight the small handy salinator. It took 90 minutes of pumping, which is a huge effort to get a litre of water. You would have died of exhaustion before you died of dehydration using this. You can see the various bottles for the sundowners out in the cockpit. The interesting thing I find here is the numbers are listed for everything, but not for the sachets of white wine. Maybe there was quite a few of those on board. Well, it is going to take 10 months after all. It was planned to take 10 months. Fortunately, Blackmores was a sponsor. So with all of those problems with the clothes, the washing and everything, she had lots of things. Now you think that COVID caused a rush on toilet paper. Not so. There was a raid on toilet paper for the First Lady. It was called Jimmy Mack first. We're doing a virtual tour now of the boat as it is at the museum. Here's the solar panels. She had three means of charging the batteries: the solar panels, the wind generator, which she lost in the first leg, and the diesel generator below. The radar here. This is the box which houses the diesel generator. Very noisy and lots of dangerous fumes. This was the stainless steel pipe. On top of that was the wind generator. When she was knocked down, the wind generator was just swept away. If it was me, I'd be turning back to get another one, but never mind, she just kept going. The self-steering, that's the self-steering, part of the self-steering system. Here's the other part on the stern, very substantial, heavy-duty self-steering. The dome on the companionway, once she closed the boat up, she could put her head up here, see what was happening, how the sails were set, etc. Saved her going outside sometimes. The winches, I sail with the man who provided all the hardware for the boat. The winches are oversized to make it a little bit easier for operation. Once again, you can see here, this is no lining in the boat. All of the nuts and fastenings are exposed for quick repair if need be. All of the contents of the cabin are in nets. You're not sure what's going to happen next. Here's the two alarms. They're over her bunk. And over the bunk also is a compass. So very quickly she can wake up and look at whether the boat is actually on the course it's supposed to be on. This is the chart room, the navigation room, and the radio room. As you go out the companionway, there's the essentials, the binoculars, the harness. And she had a complete workshop up the front, as you may remember, that list of tools. And here she had to cut a spinnaker pole up and shape it and drill holes in it to do the repair to the boom. Here's the repair to the boom. It's just the bang damaged the boom. You can see part of a track here and the part of the spinnaker pole that's now strengthening the boom. Another shot of it from the other side. And when she left, she had lots of fresh food. That only lasted a couple of weeks, of course. So the rest of the journey was either something to cook or it was out of a can. You may remember I said you can't put all these cans down in the bilge with paper labels. So the paper labels were taken off. Indelible ink, what was inside was prawns. Then the can, in 6-10 months, of course, this is very thin steel. You could have perforated corrosion and lose the contents of the can. So they've been varnished. Paper off, name on, varnished, and then in the bilge. For those of you who are a little older like I am, you'll recognise that as a pressure cooker, something that you can cook things in a lot quicker than otherwise. Now this is, you're trying to do things here, cut up things or work on the stove top, etc. And the boat is all over the place. You run the risk of cutting something other than the food, your finger. So this is how it was done. That's the stove top, and the bench up here is you unlatch this, step inside, latch it back up, you lean back against this with your knees against here. You are now in the braced position, so you're moving with the boat and things are a lot safer. Here's the bunk. Notice the eyelets here. That would be brought up and tied over the top. You could get tossed out of the bunk with a freak wave. The library that she had on board. She was there over Christmas. She had lots of Christmas cards and cards to open while she was there. And here's one of the kerosene lamps turned down low at night to provide some light and heat. And continuously talking to Teddy. Here is Ted. It's a huge teddy bear. And unfortunately, she found out he was male. And therefore, she had to have this female teddy sitting there watching the male teddy to make sure he behaved himself. So that's a quick overview of what Kay Cotty did. Extraordinary voyage. So let's have a look now at Jessica Watson. Here's Jessica. And here she is. The boat was fitted out in Brisbane. So the first leg was Brisbane to Sydney to start out of Sydney. Collision with the ship. You can see the boat's been dismasted. It's damaged. So that's how it arrived. You can imagine the outcry, particularly her parents, is what are you doing allowing this girl to do what she's trying to do and she can't even make it from Brisbane to Sydney. So she was given some extra training, but the parents decided, no, we'll let her go. So another shot of Jessica. Here she is, Ella's Pink Lady. So it's a Spark Twin & Stevens SNS 34. Once again, nothing special, well-built boat. The collision, and there was some controversy. She didn't do the required distance. She only did 18,000 nautical miles. So she finishes up not with a world navigation, or she finishes up with a southern hemisphere navigation, circumnavigation. Gets lots of recognition. Young Australian of the Year, youngest Sydney Hobart crew. She did do a Sydney Hobart. And you may remember this, Prime Minister Rudd, you're a hero, and Jessica's reply. Let me give you a little bit of the story about Jessica coming home. I was fortunate enough to be on the marine rescue boat that was, I spent some years in marine rescue, fortunate enough to go out to find Jessica at sea and escort her to the finishing line, which was between the heads. But the television people took charge on this particular day. None of them knew anything about sailing. And they said, look, we want Jessica to come in from the northeast so that we get the real good shots of the harbour in the background. They didn't know there was a strong south-westerly breeze blowing. It took a 40-plus tax. So she was 2 hours, well, you may remember she was 2 hours late. And Prime Minister Rudd and everyone was sitting there cooling their heels for 2 hours. But it's important to look at what she said. Just an ordinary person, had a dream, worked hard at it, proved that anything really can be done. And it's a dream that drives most of these people to do this. Here she is, having crossed the finishing line, coming down the harbour. And once again, a book. Lisa Blair. I had the privilege at the International Boat Show of doing a presentation. A number of us did presentations. I drew the short straw, which was the Sydney Hobart Yacht Race. I fortunately had Lindsay May, who's done something like 50 Sydney Hobarts, give me a lot of material and helped me. And I'm standing up there doing this presentation, absolutely dreading the question, which is, how many Sydney Hobarts have you done? The answer is 0. So Lisa did a fantastic job. Here she is. Here's another shot of Lisa on the bow of a boat. Here she is, and that looks like a really rough sea. Just look at the expression on the face. This is fun. I'm really enjoying this. And here she is sailing, doing the navigation of Antarctica. And it didn't go well. On day 72, she was dismasted and they diverted a container ship to her. To give her some fuel, she's going to have to motor sail to Cape Town, 1,000 nautical miles away. And we saw the 2 shots of that. We'll have a look at that again. So she spent quite some time getting the boat repaired. The damage that was done in the collision, she could repair that to the hull as well. So here's the shot of the mast. Fancy being awoken with a huge bang and coming up to see that. So it would be very distressing. And here's the arrival in Cape Town with the jury-rigged sails. Right, now she then says, all right, well, I'd like to have a go at the Sydney Hobart. Buys a boat only 4 weeks before the start. Most boats take a lot longer to do the preparation than that. Gets together an all-female crew. It's the first time she's ever been on a crewed boat. Everything else has been done solo. She's one of 4 female skippers in this particular Sydney Hobart, and they come 59th across the line honours out of 102 entries. That's a very creditable performance given the lack of preparation. They take 3 days, 21 hours. Ichiban wins it in 2 days, 12 hours. Here, Lisa and the female crew, Sydney Hobart. All right, Australia. Lisa then does the circumnavigation of Australia. Not using any fuel, it's all solar powered. As you can imagine, the sea lanes are crowded now with shipping, tankers, container ships, and of course there's all the reefs off Queensland. As you go around, you don't get breeze from the same direction, and of course up around Darwin and the Western Australia coast, some fierce storms, and the maximum sleep you could get was 20 minutes at a time. So we'll now look at some of the other women sailors other than Australians. Naomi James, a New Zealander, boat's called Express Crusader. It takes her 272 days. She's single-handed, but it's not non-stop, and it is assisted. She has to stop for repairs. I've added the figure here for Kay Cotty, 189, but she is the first woman to go around. So a lot of the women sailors do something, their claim to fame, if you like, is the first to do something. Here she is, down below. Climbing the mast. Most of these boats had steps so that if you needed to do some maintenance or do something at the top of the mast, before one of the races a couple of years ago, we hoisted the mainsail and then went to tension it and dropped straight back down to the deck. So we've got a shackle broken at the top of the mast, the halyard's up there. Somebody's got to go up to retrieve it so that we can do the race. I'm the smallest and the lightest, so I finish up. It's a 3/4 rig boat, so there's the last 8-10 feet of the mast is just an aluminium pole, and it was a very scary experience. However, we got it down and started the race. Here she is on board the boat. And now Dame Ellen MacArthur. So Dame Ellen, here she is. She runs a foundation, as we'll see later. So there she is giving a presentation at her foundation. And she does the second Vendée Globe in 94 days and goes round the fastest solo in 2005 in 71 days. That's against 189. And most of these women start a foundation. They give something back to the community. Here she is on board. Just look at the size of this boat that she's going to do a circumnavigation in solo. This is the trimaran, once again solo, that she went round in such a short time. Hard to imagine. And here's the foundation that she establishes, the Cancer Trust, to take people who are having quite a miserable time in life out for a pleasant experience. And now we come to Laura Decker. Here's Laura, as you've seen her before. And She born in New Zealand. She's in Dutch, but I think it's her father's German. So she's got 3 passports. So at age 14, she says, well, I'm going to do a circumnavigation. She's prevented from doing that. She's got a 40-foot catch called Guppy. So one day she just sails to England, arrives in England, and eventually the authorities in England find out she's there. So they call her father in Holland and say, look, you better come and get this young girl. And his reply was, well, just, she can sail it back. If she sail it there, she can surely sail it back. But finally he is told he's got to come and sail it back with her. So she does this as a bit of a holiday, really. There's lots of stopovers on the way around, but she does do it. It takes a long time, as you can see, and donates the boat to LifeSail for people that are not in a good situation in life, that they can enjoy sailing. And it finishes up as a film, a TV program, and also a book. Here's Guppy, the boat, quite large. That's a big wheel for a small girl. And here's a photo she took up the mast. Once again, steps to get up there. Looks a long way down. I can remember going up the mast and thinking, if I fall here, I probably won't hit the boat. It looks so small. Another lady that, another woman that did circumnavigation, Nice Kapari. So Aviva, Ocean Racing. Here she is at the wheel. And, well, there are other women have gone the easy way around. So she decides, well, I'll go the opposite direction. That's going to be a lot harder. And solo non-stop. In total, she does 6 circumnavigations. 3 of them are solo. She does the Vendee race, does lots of races, including Sydney Hobart. And finally, in the Volvo race, takes out a women and male young crew. Then finally goes to the Middle East to teach the start a sailing, women's sailing program there. Is a great person to get rid of plastic, and once again establishes a charity for injured service men. Here she is in Aviva, and here's the moment of triumph. Now we'll have a look at Jeannie Socrates. Here she is, age 77. She has 3 attempts to do it. It's not a big boat, 38 foot. Finally success at age 70, then again at age 77, and gets lots of recognition for it. Here's the boat, the 38-foot boat. She does an unusual route, starts out in Canada and finishes in Canada. You can see goes below all the land masses. And here she is getting lots of recognition. Samantha Brewster is Samantha. Once again, a large boat. And she's the first woman to go in the opposite direction solo, only 29. It is assisted, however, but it's 247 days. This is a huge yacht, 67 foot, normally with a crew of 14 to race it. And she keeps saying on the radio, why am I doing this? Lots of races. We're into races now. So I'm sure you can recognize some of these words. Some of them have come and gone. Some of them morphed into something else. But if you want to go racing around the globe, there's lots of opportunities to do it. Now we'll start with the Australian women races. Adrienne Cahoon. Here she is at a navigator's desk. Most of these women have come up through the ranks and sailed everything, including the 18-foot skiffs. In 84, she does her first. She's on board as a navigator for 5 of the line honours in Wild Oats. She's the only woman in a Volvo race. She's the fastest Australian woman for a world circumnavigation. We'll see the boat that she does this in. She's renowned around the world as a weather and navigation consultant. She's inducted into the Sailing Hall of Fame, as we saw, and her profession is a lawyer. Here she is lifting the silver after one of the Wild Oats wins. This is the one that sets the record at the time around the world circumnavigation. If you're wondering how big this is, have a look at the crew. The crew are here. She's navigating it. This is one large boat. Here's the other boat that she navigated in. You can look at the speed. It's probably doing 30 knots. Another shot of it to give you some idea of the size. Wendy Tuck, still in Australia. Wendy, a lot of time in the Clipper Round the World race. She became the chief instructor. What a privilege and recognition that is. You can join this race without a lot of experience. You pay for it. You can do a leg just for the hell of it. There will be experienced crew on board. It's typically going to take 10 months through 6 oceans. She's the first Australian woman to do it, and finally wins it as the first woman skipper in 2018. And just for the hell of it, it's done 13 Sydney Hobart races. Here she is, the helm. And once again, moment of triumph. Vanessa Dudley, JT spends a lot of time at Sailability at Middle Harbour Yacht Club. I've spent some time there with JT and Vanessa. Vanessa takes the small boats out as a skipper with disabled people on board. It's a bit of a challenge at times. So she's into lasers in a big way. The Grand Laser Masters in Oman in 2013, Mexico 2016, and just for the hell of it, 20 plus Sydney Hobarts. Vanessa. Tracy Edwards, we've now moved away from Australia. Skippered the first female crew in the Whitbread race. Finishes up dismasted. Some of these women did run into a bit of trouble, and she's now doing a lot of girls' education. Took out the Jules Verne trophy. Here she is at the wheel. Here she is lifting the trophy. Claire Francis. Here's Claire, an author, at the wheel. And she's a novelist, written lots of boats. The striking thing about this lady is just after she leaves on the race, she announces to everyone, by the way, I suffer chronic fatigue syndrome, but I am absolutely determined that's not going to stop me to do this, and once again establishes a charity, wins the Whitbread race in 77, 78. Isabelle Toussier, who's Isabel? Here she is at the wheel. It looks a bit tough going right now when this photo was taken. And it's even tougher right now with all the water coming over. So she had a pretty tough time of it. Here she is, as you saw before, in the Vendée Globe 60-foot boat. And she's the first woman solo in the BOC Challenge, but she does get dismasted. And she's well south of Adelaide, finally rescued by one of our Navy ships, HMAS Darwin. Let me just give you a bit of an insight into how you can see things differently. These rescues that were done, and the one by Tony Bullmore, a friend that I worked with, his son was the pilot of the Orion reconnaissance aircraft that found them and then directed the Navy to do the rescue. And of course, the newspaper said, what are we doing spending millions of dollars rescuing these people that have no regard for their own safety? The answer is quite different. These people do exercises regularly. They're typically boring and regarded as pretty useless. Here they had something really worthwhile doing. It didn't cost anyone anything. They cancelled the next exercise that they were going to do, just to give you a different view of things, and don't believe all you read in the paper. So, and she had a couple of bad experiences, capsized, rescued by another competitor. The rule of the sea: if you're in trouble, everyone around you is required to go to your aid. They get redress for that if the person who does the rescue. Here's Catherine. Once again, very focused in this photo. Another one on board. And here she is on Whirlpool. Once again, things happened, and here's Whirlpool dismasted. Here she is going up the mast of Whirlpool, and she becomes a very important politician, member of the European Parliament, and she does do a solo and non-stop, and she's the only woman to win the Fastnet race, a notoriously difficult race in '99. Liesl Tesch, we're now on the Olympics on the home run. Liesl Tesch, Jenny Armstrong and Belinda Stoll. Liesl is not a complete paraplegic. She teams up with Daniel Fitzgibbon, who is, and she does a Sydney Hobart. They get gold in both London and Rio, and she's helped Royal Prince Alfred put together a disabled sailing program. Here's Liesl. Here they are on board. You can see Fitzgibbon in a special chair with the only thing he can use is his arms. So they took out 2 goals. And once again, giving something back to the community. She's been in Asian countries, motivating women in wheelchairs to play netball and other sports. So Jenny Armstrong and Belinda Stoll. The Victor Kolenko got inducted. That's the only man I'm going to mention. He's called the medal maker, so he obviously helps a lot of people. Gold in Melbourne, the first gold for women's sailing, and finish up for 5 consecutive years in the top 10 of the world. And of course, as you know, inducted into the Sailing Hall of Fame. It's the girl, women, out on the boat. And, well, it wouldn't be complete if I'm going to talk about women that have competed in an Olympic if I didn't mention Karen, one of the squadron's own. An incredible length of time to compete at Olympic level. One of our first women, Seoul, 6th in Seoul in the 470 class. Then in Athens, 2004 in the Yingling class, 13th, and then Beijing 2008. You're not allowed to give the age of people out. I'll let you figure that out. But you can imagine being a housewife and having other things to do to be able to continue to compete at Olympic level. What an outstanding achievement. Now, let me give you a challenge. You're probably thinking, well, if they can do it, I probably can. There's no age constraint. If you're young, you can do it. And if you're in your late 70s, you can do it. So there's no reason that you can't do this. And you're thinking, well, there's probably a budget problem here. How in the hell will I get the money to do this? So I thought an article out of the Afloat magazine in February this year might help you finally decide I can do it. So here's Axel. She's a medical student, probably 18, 19, 20 years old. Here's her boat, Little Me, number 7081, 21 foot long. Here it is undergoing the rollover stability test, just to make sure. And there's no budget issue here. You can build it yourself. All you need is some plywood and timber, and you've got it. Here it is, just finishing it off. You can get Dad's car out of the garage and do this. And, well, a holiday in France, once the world gets back to normal, holiday in France, off to the Canary Islands as a stopover for a week or two, and you've always wanted to go to the Caribbean. So this is definitely the way to do it on a 21-foot boat. So this all gets started by an eccentric British sailor, Bob Salmon. He says, look, doing things out in the ocean should be affordable and achievable by a lot of people. People like Dame Ellen MacArthur have done it probably just for the hell of it, and it's Axel's dream. Takes her 18 months to get ready to do this. The prerequisites are you've got to have done 1,500 miles in mini races. So there's lots of races you can do this in, and 1,000 miles solo on a planned course. And she decides, well, I'll do the mini fastnet. There is a mini fastnet. The mini fastnet, as I said, 15 men have died in one of these races. It's notoriously, you can have extraordinarily bad weather. So here's the fastnet for those of you who maybe are not familiar with it, from Cowes out through a rock with a lighthouse on it, if I remember correctly, and back again to Plymouth. Here's 781. I hope this is not the start of the race. Look at the sails. It's a bit crowded. They won't be going anywhere. I think it's probably just a photo shot. So once again, 30 minutes sleep. On this particular part of the ocean, you're going to get cold fronts, just like often the Sydney-Hobart experiences. Strong breeze, lots of waves. She runs into real problems. The rudders are delaminating and coming apart. The food's different to Cape Coddy. There's now cook in a bag meals, so that's a lot easier. The tactics, of course, are important. The weather forecast. It's an emotional roller coaster for her. She's ecstatic one day when the boat's going well, and in rough water, something quite different. Loved the scenery, lots of marine life to see. Spends lots of time just chatting with the other competitors when they're in radio range, and finishes up what a wonderful human adventure, and now starts to dream of doing bigger and better things. It's a boat that really is designed to a downwind flyer. You would have seen that from the hull shape. So you're flying a spinnaker whenever possible, and you can see it's moving quite fast through the water. This is what the inside looks like, at least for Axel. Notice the number of instruments all around the place, just a lot of technology. Here she is, 17 days later, moment of triumph, I did it. And for those of you who think that's not much of a challenge, they're experimenting with one of these 21-foot boats on foils. So if you think just doing it the old-fashioned way wasn't enough, this would really be an adventure. And if you don't think doing it in a 21-foot boat, you can probably hire or buy one of these. And seeing there's no planes flying and you want to see somebody in London or New York, it's only going to take you 20 days to get to New York or London. You can go right around the world and see everyone in 42 days. Or this one, you could probably hire or buy this and do much the same. So there's the challenges. And so the last things you need to think about is it is normally a dream that people get to do this. Now, a dream after you've had a few glasses is not really a true dream. You need to wake up and still remember the dream. And of course, if you're dreaming, you're going to have to be passionate and determined to do it. Lots of training experience, and you saw from Cape Coddy, absolutely meticulous preparation. Know a lot about boat handling, navigation, problem solving. No panic decisions here, cool, calm and collected. Be a good communicator. Obviously mentally tough, very disciplined, and it goes without saying, you're going to have to be fit and have a lot of stamina. 20, 30 minutes sleep at a time is not what everyone can survive. And lastly, you're going to need a bit of luck with the weather and the sea conditions. So now I've convinced you all, remember this was specifically set up for an audience of women and girls. Now I've convinced you all to go have a go at this. We'll have some questions. Thank you.
I think I have to say thank you, Noel. I don't know if I have been convinced to go around the world, let alone I think I've done one offshore race, and I'm not sure that I want to make any changes there.
Well, I gave it a try anyway.
Oh yeah, but you just have to be in awe of those ladies, don't you? The round the world ones are, I mean all of them, but the round the world ones are phenomenal. To take that on and actually succeed. I'm wondering, do we have any questions out there, JT? Maybe if anyone does have any questions, come in via the chat function.
Yeah, well, I'd maybe just while people are thinking about questions, Noel, the way you've presented it makes it sound like it's something that it's fairly straightforward, and you're sort of showing how a little bit of money and preparation and luck and away you go. But behind the scenes, I suspect that there's a lot of heartbreak. There's a lot of, well, I won't call them false starts, but there's probably a number of people who start off with the best of intentions and just haven't been able to carry it off for one reason or another. So you've handpicked the success stories, and maybe there's a few disappointed ones behind the scenes. But as Karen says, what a great achievement! It's just phenomenal. And to think that was some of those ladies were sailing back in the 80s. It's just again, the technology just was so much more basic then, and the systems and so forth. So again, all credit to them.
In response to that, JT, I think I would say, yes, we've seen the successes tonight, but really in anything you do, it's the journey. So, it's the experiences that you learn along the way that really add value to it.
I don't think I trivialised it. It didn't come.
No, not at all. Not at all. But, I for example, I sailed with Vanessa in the 18-foot skiff, and our first season we were trialling twin rudders before they were a thing on the skiff. Like, we were wondering why we couldn't keep the thing upright. And I can assure you, when we rigged the boat in Double Bay on a Saturday afternoon, I would look up in a nor'easter and go, oh, it was terrifying, the thought of leaving the beach and trying to navigate the traffic up there. But, it was an amazing experience, and I don't think I've ever been in a boat that goes so fast. So, it was a great experience.
So we do have a couple of questions, and it's probably addressed to all here. What can we do to encourage more high-performance women sailors? From James Litton. Anybody got any thoughts there?
I think continue to provide opportunities. You really do need to have the basics before you can start moving on to high performance. But I think in Australia we do offer opportunities. We just have to follow Lisa Darmanin, and really looking forward to, and fingers crossed that they actually can race in Tokyo. She's at the front end of a NACRA 17 that's foiling now, and I do think actually the introduction of the mixed classes into the Olympics has been a good thing for both genders, and it is certainly bringing the girls along that high performance fast pathway. Well, the two-handed sailing event out of the Paris Olympics is going to be interesting. We're finally got a format for it. Yeah, that's.
I think what inspires most people, apart from the dream, is a role model, somebody that they respect and admire. And often a lot of people don't push themselves. So, if you can identify people that are really good role models and market that, often people latch onto that. I would like to do what she did.
There's a question here that's probably better for you, Karen, from Stephen Tate. Just can you tell us about the Youth America's Cup and the cruise from Sydney? We may know. Yes, you may know, Karen.
I do know. I mean, from the squadron, we have a team that's going to be representing us, and only 2 of the sailors have been announced so far, and that's Otto Henry and Maddie O'Shea. Maddie is actually one of our coaches at the club. She has been to the last 2 youth worlds in the laser radial. You know, she has done so much sailing for someone that hasn't hit 21 yet. You know, and to have the opportunity to get involved with the Youth America's Cup, I think is really exciting. I think we're all waiting to see how that's going to pan out with the whole COVID situation. Are we going to be able to get teams to New Zealand to actually do the racing? You know, with the Youth America's Cup, they've built a custom boat for them to sail, but nobody really has the opportunity to practice in it. And it's the same for all of the teams. They've had some Kiwi sailors trialling the first boat, but certainly none of the sailors that will be racing or are scheduled to race in the America's Cup have been in the boat yet. So I know our teams here are trying to fast track sailing high performance boats like that, you know. But that is certainly a challenge. But that's, I'm sorry, I can't tell you much more. That's all I know.
There's a nice comment here from Genevieve Slattery too, following on from what more can we do to encourage high performance sailing? And Genevieve says, and follow your lead, Karen. Respect and admire our captain. Thanks for this session. So there you go, Karen. Well done.
Thanks. And, you know, all I can say is, you know, just let's get out on the water a bit more, and fingers crossed we can still hold our Ladies of the Sea coaching regatta over the October long weekend. You know, that would be the first thing I'd have scheduled in for the season, and, you know, continue to get out on the water and improve every time you go out.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. Are there any more questions out there? I think we've covered everything.
For Karen, who were your mentors?
I have to say, I mean, Nikki Bethwaite was terrific. You know, I sailed with Nikki for 20 years, and she was a few years older than me, but, you know, very, very experienced. So many people I met along the way. I mean, I ended up sailing with Nikki after my season with Vanessa in the 18. Vanessa and Nikki were great buddies, still are great buddies. You know, Adrian, we both came from Lane Cove Sailing Club. I remember Adrian starting out in her laser, and, you know, she's just gone on to amazing things. And I did have the good fortune late last year to do my first ever offshore race with her, and you know, it was great to see her in her element, you know, doing her job below, and really there's so many terrific female sailors out there, and male, like, you know, there's so many people that we can all learn from, and I think that's the thing. Have your eyes open to always be learning.
Just from Marie McLaughlin, I appreciate too knowing about Karen's history. Great background photo, Karen.
Oh yes, anyone J70s, they're really fun to sail. Not quite as fast as an 18-foot skiff, but they feel on the edge when the breeze is up. That's for sure.
You must have a big wall at home to be able to put that up there.
Oh yes, it's very clever, isn't it?
Yeah. What a gem of a person to have in situ. I've done my crew course. Now I finally have the time and opportunity, and I'm hooked. Onward to Helm, and then who knows? Well done, Karen, JT, Noel, and James. There you go. From Lynn Flynn to all panelists, it was really interesting and inspiring presentation. Thank you. Great night. Stephen Tate's written something else here. James, you see that? I sailed behind Nicky's transom in Nick's during the 1970s. A beautiful wooden boat by Ken Bichelle made me a wooden boat lover. You probably do remember that, Karen?
No, I didn't get into the 470 until the late 80s, just before, in the lead up to the 88 games, when they introduced a separate women's event for double-handed sailing.
Yeah. Well, I guess we should probably wrap it up now. We've gone a little bit over time, but I think it's been worthwhile. Noel, just wanted to say thank you on behalf of the cruising division, how much we yet again appreciate your presentations and the preparation that you put into the details and the slides that you put up. It's wonderful, and we certainly appreciate it, and we'll owe you yet another virtual bottle of wine. I'm sorry that we can't present it live, but look forward to it in the future. And thank you all for joining us tonight. This presentation has been recorded, and you'll be able to look at it again on the website, at the Squadron website, and tell your friends about it. Thank you all, and we look forward to seeing you again down the club, hopefully in person, and again for our next presentation, which may or may not be live, but it will certainly be bringing it to you. Thank you all.
Okay, thanks, Noel.
Thanks for the invitation.
Thanks again, Noel.